Hello, I'm Bill LuMaye, and thank you for watching Community Matters. We hope you'll continue to watch as we discuss issues facing our community and provide you with the resources and information needed to find solutions. Hello and welcome. Today we're shedding light on one of North Carolina's most urgent and heartbreaking issues, human trafficking. Our state consistently ranks among the top 10 in the nation for reported cases. Joining us to help unpack what this crisis looks like in our community and how people can get help is Amber Moss, Social Service Manager at the Salvation Army. And Amber, thank you for taking time for us today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, let's talk about you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background.
Let's do it. So I am a Greensboro native. I was born and raised there. Went to elementary, middle, and high school. After high school, I realized I tried to figure out what my passion was. Math has never been my thing, so I knew I wouldn't be an engineer. But I decided that, my passion is for helping people, human services, and just giving back to the community. So I decided to hone in on that and pursue my bachelor's degree in social work. So then after that, I decided to work in the field of social work for quite some time. And then I realized that the system is broken somewhat in the criminal justice arena. So I decided to pursue my master's in criminal justice from North Carolina Central University.
Wow, that's interesting. And then you made your way over to the Salvation Army.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about human trafficking here. How did that happen?
So I do know that I was still looking for my passion, and I'm really big on my faith, and I always prayed to God that He could gift me with a job that I feel like I'm just giving back to the community, and it's not necessarily feeling like a job, it's more so rewarding. And I feel like I finally found that position where it's when I go to work, I don't dread it. I feel like I'm living in my purpose, and that's what I've always prayed for.
Well, if you found happiness, that's great. Your
Absolutely.
prayers were answered. And for a lot of people too, because I know you deal with human trafficking. And I gotta be honest with you, that's a pretty big deal. I don't think people understand how big a deal it is. We don't hear much about it in the news. So would you mind just tell us about human trafficking and how big is it here in the state?
Yeah, so this is a great question. Human trafficking is a major social problem that I don't think people realize the severity of it. And I think that is due to the limited statistics. I mean, it didn't really become into an act until 2007. So prior to that, there was not a lot of data on human trafficking. And a lot of times it was just chalked up to prostitution. So there's different areas where that could have been misconstrued or not really understood for the community to understand the issue. But North Carolina ranks number 9 in the nation and has been for quite some time. And I also realized too, the Shared Hope International, they do a report card on how we as a state combat human trafficking. And for the past few years, we've received an F, and our last grade was a D. So it just shows that we have a lot of improving to do when it comes to spreading the awareness and educating the community and making sure that we have adequate resources for victims and survivors of human trafficking.
Well, let's talk about human trafficking. I mean, what is it? Because there's a lot of different categories. I mean, I get Amber Alerts, and immediately I think, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But it's so much more than that.
Yeah.
What are the different categories? Who's involved in this?
So human trafficking can involve minors specifically, it can involve women, it can also involve men and LGBT community. So nobody's actually exempt for being human trafficking, but specifically it deals with force, fraud, and coercion. Those are the 3 components that typically are present when it comes to a victim of human trafficking. And usually predators are looking for somebody who is vulnerable. Not to say that if you're not in a vulnerable position that you're exempt from being targeted, but they typically prey on individuals that are either facing homelessness, victim of domestic violence, someone struggling with chemical dependency such as substance abuse, and also runaway youth. So those are some of the individuals that are more susceptible to being trafficked versus our other counterparts.
Well, if we're number 9 in the nation, then it would almost seem as though we have a lot of vulnerable people in the state as well. I mean, it seems to be a lot of things that aren't going well here in the state in that regards. Why 9? I mean, is it that we have so many homeless and vulnerable people, or is there something else going on here? I know we're close to I-95. Is that an issue?
Yeah, and that's great that you mentioned that because I was going to touch on that. Also, the interstate I-85 and I-95, you can go all the way up north and you can also go all the way down south. So there's a lot of logistics involved in human trafficking, and it's not just domestic, but it's also international. And, I spoke earlier about, human smuggling, and some people can be lured in. They may be promised a better life here in America. People want to come here to have a better quality of life, but when they actually get here, it turns into something a lot darker, which is human trafficking.
How can the community help or spot what would be a victim of human trafficking?
So the community can help by just being more vigilant and aware, and whether that's attending workshops or collaborating with other social service agencies, cooperating with law enforcement if they need any types of tips, or if you just simply suspect somebody of being a victim of human trafficking. I say if you see something, definitely say something. It's better than it slipping through the cracks and somebody being victimized another day. The way you can possibly spot somebody being a victim of human trafficking is maybe physical bruises, definitely, isolation, overly submission, fearful of retaliation, so they may not want to disclose their location or anything about their day-to-day life, the lack of identification or just citizenship documents. Those are some of the indicators, and also brandings like different types of tattoos, because a lot of gangs are affiliated with human trafficking as well.
I was going to say, because the obviously stupid question I'm going to ask is, well, why don't they just find the nearest police officer and say help?
Yeah.
But I think you kind of touched on it.
Yeah.
They're that fearful?
Also that, and they have lost trust. The legitimacy between the criminal justice system and victims and survivors has been skewed a lot over the time. A lot of times they have either caught criminal records because they've chalked it up to just prostitution. Some prostitutes, for lack of a better word, they don't necessarily want to be in that lifestyle. They could be being trafficked to stay in that lifestyle. Whether they wanted to do it once or twice, but if they say they don't want to do that anymore, it turns into human trafficking. And so they have lost trust in, the law enforcement possibly being able to help them versus them catching a criminal charge for it.
Are there any stats? Do you have a number
Yeah.
that you can put on the state of North Carolina? How many people are in that situation right now in the state?
So they're currently updating, and when I say they, the National Human Trafficking Hotline, which is where we receive a majority of our calls, but we also receive them from other agencies as well. But just to put it in perspective, in 2023, there were 684 signals, meaning tips, that were called into the North Carolina Human Trafficking Hotline. And out of that 684, there were about over 300 that were turned into actual criminal cases. And that include about over 200 individuals. So that means there's been multiple victims under one case.
And I suspect there's lots more.
Absolutely, because that's just the documented data. We don't know what's not being documented.
Thus far, Amber, we've been talking, I think, primarily about adults, but what about kids?
Yeah, children are actually the #1 target for predators and traffickers, just because they are a lot more vulnerable and they don't have that full maturity of guidance and wisdom to kind of make the right choices. So for instance, the older stereotype, if you've seen the movie Taken, is, being abducted into a car or a van. But the new situation could be typically the internet, social media, and we don't know who our kids or children in the community are communicating with on these social platforms such as Facebook, Snapchat, and all the other platforms that are out there. So that makes them more susceptible to reach out to strangers, and they can possibly run the risk of being human trafficked as well.
I mean, that just blows me away.
Yeah.
Speaking of going away, we're going to take a quick break, but we're coming right back with Amber. Stick around. Welcome back. We're returning with Amber from the Salvation Army. If someone finds themselves as a victim of human trafficking or they suspect happening, how can they help, Amber? Let's start with that question. What is it that they do?
Definitely. So, there's multiple ways that they can reach out for help. Of course, law enforcement, they can reach out to the North Carolina Human Trafficking Hotline, and they also can reach out to Project Fight and other agencies that provide services for human trafficking victims and also domestic violence victims.
Well, let's talk about Fight.
Yeah.
Is that an acronym for something, or what is it exactly? Tell us about it.
Yes, so FIGHT actually stands for Freeing Individuals Gripped by Human Trafficking.
I like it.
Yeah, I do
Yeah,
too.
it's good. And it's a program of the Salvation Army
Yes.
exclusively?
Yes.
So what does the program do?
So it's a multifaceted program, and we help provide services to individuals and victims and survivors of human trafficking. So we pretty much are the first responders after they've probably spoke with law enforcement or even been seen by medical professionals. If they have nowhere to go or if they just need community support, we are there as a team to provide case management for them. And that could look like legal resources. It could be interpretation services for our non-English speakers. It also could be mental health services, including education, literacy, employee readiness. So there's a multiple resources that we provide for them.
Well, how did that get started? Was it just out of frustration that there wasn't something being done for these folks?
Yeah, so it started back in 2011, and it was initially initiated by Christine Long. She's currently the executive director of the North Carolina Human Trafficking Commission. After speaking with her, she did let me know that she realized that there was no actual anti-human trafficking initiative in North Carolina that she knew of, and she wanted to contribute to that cause, and that's initially how Project FIGHT was born.
Well, I know you have a lot of services that you offer for the folks. Maybe you can offer a perspective on this. Let's say you can maybe not talk specifically, but someone who's involved in human trafficking, that's got to be traumatic.
Absolutely.
So they're a victim.
Yeah.
Now you've got hold of them. They've escaped somehow, and now they're in your program. What is it that you do to mold them to heal, I guess, would be the question.
Yeah, so we definitely want to approach them in a delicate manner, and we make sure that we're using trauma-informed language, and we're not just judging from the outside or assuming that they're okay just because they are in a current, better environment at the moment. We still want to consider their mental health and their physical well-being, which is why we make sure that if they want to express that they need mental health services or physical exams or anything of that nature, we make sure that we accommodate them the best that we can.
Now, I know you go out and you talk to law enforcement, community leaders, and all of that. How aware are they of the problem that exists here in North Carolina?
I do believe that they are becoming more aware of the issue, which is a great direction for us to head. I do think it still takes more time and just consistency, that we don't lose the momentum in spreading awareness, because people tend to lose sight of what possibly could be hiding in plain sight. For example, I did a presentation at the Johnson County Community College about a month ago, and it was 2 state troopers to talk about the Interdiction for Protection of Children. And that's a program that was adopted from the Texas Department of Public Safety. And the point of that program is for all of our law enforcement officers that are patrolling the streets, when they do traffic stops, to look more into not just giving out an actual speeding ticket, but possibly look for indicators of child exploitation. Question the nature of the relationship that the child is driving with the individual. It could be a complete stranger. It could be a minor. It could be a young lady that's got out of high school that's been picked up from a trafficker, or someone who doesn't have her best interests at heart. So it's to spread more awareness in that aspect. But I think it is going in the right direction.
And the communities, that's an army, right?
Absolutely.
You know, so how do we educate the community to be aware, but also with their own eyes to be able to spot someone who might need help?
Yeah, definitely. Just like I said, building that momentum and also collaborating with other partners and agencies that provide services, whether it's, domestic violence shelters, that overlaps with human trafficking. So somebody who has experienced human trafficking, I'm sure they've experienced some type of violence or domestic violence wherever they're living. So it's just good to, conduct workshops and presentations. For example, like I said, at WakeMed that I've done, the Durham County Courthouse on Friday, the Wake County Public Courthouse. So all of these entities, they play a vital part in our collaboration. So the more that we have a team aspect, it works in amazing ways.
Well, and if I'm sitting at a diner and I see something, I guess you got to act, right?
Yeah.
I bet a lot of people are probably afraid to stick their nose in someone else's business, and that's a big problem.
Yeah.
Hopefully this show will help encourage them to be a little more proactive. Amber's not going anywhere. Not yet. No, stay with us. What lies ahead for Project Fight? We're going to talk about it. Welcome back. We're still here with Amber Moss from the Salvation Army, and I'm glad you stuck around. Would you, and I don't know if you can, but I have no idea what it would be like to be a victim of human trafficking. And I don't know that there's a category you can lump people in if it's something everybody shares. But what's it like for them? And as you go through this at the Salvation Army, I'm sure you have interaction with it. Do you have a story for us as you could share with us about what it's like and where they are today?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I actually have two stories. One is personal, and one I can speak one about just a testimony that I've actually witnessed. But I think definitely human trafficking is a oppression type of experience. I think that they have been stripped of their freedom, and everybody has the pursuit of liberty and happiness, right? So when you get stripped of that, you don't really know how to reestablish yourself in the community without any support. Me personally, I am a survivor of domestic violence. And the reason I mention it is because I do see the parallels between domestic violence and human trafficking. A lot of them have experienced physical assault and things of that nature. So I kind of see myself in them at a point in my time of my life where it was just a little dark and I just couldn't understand what I needed to do, which is also another reason why I wanted to pursue criminal justice, not only personally, but just to see the community come together to make sure that victims are served. But when it comes to the clients, I have seen success stories. I mean, I've seen clients come in with no job, nowhere to live per se, but after working with our program, they've been relocated or reunited with their family. They've obtained work and working on getting an apartment or either a car. So it's just all about how you take lemons and turn them into lemonade. Honestly, I think that's just the most important part, and not to lose hope that just because you experience one bad chapter in your life, that you can't turn it into something major like I did for myself.
Is it? It would seem to me, I've never been in that position, but is your self-esteem stripped away? Your self-confidence stripped away? How do you take that first step then if you're somebody who might even be watching and knows somebody or is involved in that, to do what you did and so many others?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I mentioned, my personal story, I felt like not was I actually human trafficked, but I felt like my soul was trafficked. And I always tell people that because, again, I was lost. I didn't know what I needed to do next. So I had to kind of refine myself and figure out how can I make this adversity, more rewarding for myself. Instead of, focusing in on the negative, I tried to turn it into something positive and use my testimony to help others.
Well, what do you hope for the future for your endeavor with Fight?
My hope for the future is to make sure that Project Fight stays, active, and make sure that we are definitely being proactive and giving back to the community in any capacity, and just that the community comes together and that we break down the silos. I know a lot of service professionals, law enforcement has their own way of doing things, service provision has their own way of doing things, medical professional has their own way, but I would like to see the community break down the silos, collaborate more so that we can provide the best service and resources to victims and survivors.
Do you think it can happen?
Absolutely.
I mean, we're number 9 right now.
Yeah.
We'd like to be higher, wouldn't we?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, when you're talking about yourself and the folks that you help, is there a part that just stands out to you as being rewarding? It seems like you're very passionate about it, and seeing a smile on someone's face who maybe hasn't smiled in a while.
Yeah.
It's probably it, but what is it for you?
Just seeing them come in and seeing the current circumstance they're in versus when they're discharged or versus when they say, I have reached a level of independency now. Not that your services are no longer needed, but they just don't feel the need to be guided as much anymore. I think that's very rewarding because I feel like the job has been done because, it is a 5-phase program. You have the entry crisis phase, you have the transitional phase, you have stabilization, independence, and then leadership. Those are the 5 phases of Project Fight. And to see them come in on the entry crisis level all the way to the leadership level, they've reached a level of graduation where they can really, celebrate, their changes that they've been able to make in their life for themselves.
Well, you can. They're watching right now. Our community If you could say anything to them, what would it be?
If I could say anything to the community, I would definitely say that as a human being and a legitimate, just common good human being, I think we all have an obligation to give back to the community. That's what humanity is about, not turning the cheek or looking the other way for whatever personal reason or reservation you may have. Try to oversee that and make sure that you're contributing to somebody's better good in life.
Were you afraid to leave?
Yeah.
At some point? I'm guessing everybody who you've seen also afraid to leave.
Yeah.
Does that go away?
It does eventually. When you are so far removed from a traumatic situation, you start to see life better and you know that there is hope out there. And so, yeah, it does take time. And typically they are afraid to leave because they know that at some point maybe they may try to reach out, they meaning the trafficker, or try to actively look for them. But you just have to keep going.
No, I like that. Never give up. Okay, we got folks, and I hope they do pay attention and get involved. And if they are interested, what would be the best way to do that? Would they go to your website? And
Yeah.
what are some of the things that you would suggest?
So they do need to reach out to the Project Fight hotline. We do have 24/7 case management staff available so that even if it's 4 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, someone will still pick up the phone to be able to do an intake call.
Well, thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Man, and I love the color of your dress.
Thank you.
I'm not the only one saying that. We have a fashion guy out there who just absolutely loves it.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. And thank you for being here and watching. And we hope you've enjoyed today's show. If you have any questions or you'd like to know more, visit our website at RaleighCW.com and myrdctv.com. I'm Bill LuMaye. Thank you for watching Community Matters, and we'll see you next week.